All right, John, thanks for having me.
Hi,
Thank you. Thank you
Chris,
for-
how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you guys?
Okay, guys, today we are going to begin our first interview. Me and John and our friend Chris from Moldavia.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
And
Okay. Thank you for thank you for coming and accepting the offer.
Oh, it was a great offer.
yeah,
I'm not to accept it. Do I look in the camera or do I look at you?
No, you can just.
you can just look at us. I don't think the camera will look us.
Yeah.
Anyway, today we have some questions and we actually, as you said, let it go naturally.
Mhm.
We didn't have prepared a lot of questions
Mhm.
and we can ask random questions according to what you tell
Mhm.
and we ask also some prepared questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So probably the questions are going to be about the computer science and also like your life in Italy and this stuff.
Okay, makes
Yeah.
sense. So, would you like a brief introduction for me, like how
Yeah,
I
it
got
would
to
be
Italy?
nice.
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
So I was born in Moldavia with my parents, and then when I was 4 years old, my parents brought me here to Italy, and so I've done all of my studies here.
Ah, okay.
You know Italian well?
So you already speak Italian?
Yeah. My Italian is okay.
Ah, that's why you are here with your parents.
Mhm.
Okay, I thought you came here for studying and then brought your parents here.
No. No, my parents brought me here, but I was really little. I was like 4. It's-
Okay, and did you like live your whole life here in Turin or also in some other cities?
Well, no, I lived all of the time in Turin. I go back to Moldavia every summer, but that's just for seeing my grandparents and the rest of
Okay,
all my family was left there.
okay, interesting.
Now, for how many years have you been living in Italy?
Well, I'm 20 years old now, so it's been
20 years old.
yes.
Okay.
Younger than you.
Huh?
Younger than you.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm 21.
How old are you?
19.
19.
Yeah.
Wow, you're young.
You're 2000.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so
Now, you said 20 years old. For
Mhm.
how many years you are here?
16 years.
Wow.
You didn't get that?
Okay.
yeah. Okay, so do we like ask some more specific questions or?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. Actually, the interesting topic of today is why did you drop out of university and why did you apply and something like this. Actually, I mean just a topic. You don't need to answer now.
Mhm.
Just okay.
We'll get there slowly.
Yeah. I mean, actually we studied in the same group in
Mhm.
Polytechnic and I remember well. Actually, I would see you rarely.
Mhm.
I didn't see you much because you were working and at the same time studying.
Mhm.
I mean, my first question, how was difficult to study and work at the same time and could you manage it?
Okay. So it wasn't hard in the beginning. I was working part-time, so I was doing 20 hours per week, which means I was working half day every day, 4 hours every day. I was working in a software company as a software developer, full stack. I would do all sorts of things. And I actually started doing that before university, because as soon as I finished school, I immediately started working, and then university started like a month later. It wasn't too hard, and the work was actually, I was really lucky to find a company where it's called Synesthesia here in Turin. They're a pretty big software house, and the work was great. The ethics were great. You didn't have to overwork. The amount of work you had was right for the amount of time you had. So that was not the reason I dropped out. That was fine. Looking back, I think the reason I dropped out was a lack of management on my part. It's like, although I did have the time, I didn't manage the things that I had to do for university. So I would always arrive late and waste a lot of my time on other things, which happened to be other projects of my own, but in the end I wasn't studying as I should have.
Because so you dropped out because you couldn't really manage to study very well in university. So.
Well, I dropped out because I started a project.
I started a project.
Right. So after a year of working in synesthesia, I had an idea with a friend to make a startup.
Okay, it's interesting because it's actually why Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of university.
A lot of people drop out of university because they have an idea.
Yeah.
And so now we've been making it for a year. We found some investors, and we've been working on it for a year. It's obviously full time. I also left my previous job, and that's kind of why I dropped out.
Yeah. Actually, I always tell to John that if you have job, you need to drop out university. If you don't have, you need to study to spend your time.
So and the project was like, what was the project about? And how, like, with whom did you do it? And the idea.
Yeah. Okay. So the idea is this: we wanted to make a subscription service to textbooks. So it's like a Netflix for textbooks, college textbooks. And the idea is college textbooks here in Italy, they're quite expensive. They're getting more expensive all the time. And also one of the ways that people our age nowadays consume all sorts of contents, from movies to music, is with an unlimited subscription. You know, you listen to music on Spotify, you have all the music. You watch movies on Netflix, you have all the movies you want. And so the idea is the same, but for your textbooks. And I'm doing it with a friend of mine called Loris Guy, and I met him 2 years ago. And we were actually two friends of a friend that we have in common. And this friend that we have in common was launching his startup. And so he made a launch party. And we were both at that launch party where we met each other, and then a few months later we decided to start this one.
Yeah. You also sent to our 2019 group, I think. I mean, I remember.
I think you also have some contact with Polytechnic and sent it like through emails.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, we are sending emails to Polytechnic, to the students in Polytechnic.
Yeah, because I think I also received this.
You received the email?
Yeah.
You're second year now.
Yeah, I'm second year. So there must be some useful textbooks in your project.
There are some textbooks for second year. I think for sure, I'm not sure in English, although I think the tobacco, you know it, mathematical analysis, the one for second, for the second is also there, and also in English.
It is in English, yeah. It's interesting actually. I think our conversation is going to change a little bit.
Yeah. It should go naturally.
Yeah.
Let it go natural.
Yeah, so what do you think? What would you like?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, when you met the guy for the first time, then after like a month or a couple of months, you already started a project. So was it that easy to deal with the guy, or I don't know?
Well, it's particular. So I'm talking about 2 years ago. We met 2 years ago, maybe a tiny bit more than 2 years ago, at this launch party of a friend in common. But then we actually received funding and started working on the company, like officially at the beginning of this year, so in January. So actually we had been working together for a year already on the idea by the time we actually made the company and started really working on it full time, every day, all day. Well, how did it start? One day after about a month or two after meeting, my friend writes me a text message, and it's like, let's go out for dinner. I have an idea I want to tell you about. And so we talk about it, and I liked the idea. And he's like, okay, well, I have no idea where to start, like with making it, and because he was studying economics, so he had all the business part handled and imagined and everything, and then I was an engineer, so I was gonna actually make it.
Yeah.
And now we're a team of seven people. We're a really cool team. There's a really interesting vibe. I love working with all the guys and everything. It's probably one of my favorite parts, like the team and interacting the team.
Yeah.
I like also working in gym and having fun especially.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, during your life, work is essentially what you're going to be doing for most of the time. So it's really important that you find a job that you like, and that the place where you work be, shared with people that you like, and
exactly.
that it be a pleasant atmosphere. That's going to be a very big part of your life.
Yeah. There's a lot to learn from you, I think, in terms of startup. Because me and also John are interested in making something good. Which means if you find something helpful for people, which means it is some kind of startup.
Right.
I
a startup is really just a sort of a term used in like legislation and used by the people in the ecosystem to really just talking about starting any kind of business. So anything is a startup. Like a YouTube channel is a startup.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So technically, at the beginning, you just started working on the platform, some kind of platform. Like, how did you start?
So, well, we had a pretty hard problem, which is we wanted to give textbooks to people, and the textbooks are made by publishers.
Yeah.
And so the first thing we started looking at is what would it take to legally sell these textbooks, and we understood that for us to do what we wanted to do, we had to go to the publishers and get a contract with them. They allow us to sell the books for them, and obviously they're going to want some retribution exchange. So we had to think about how that would work. So like, how much money are we going to ask from the students, and how much of this money are we going to get to the publishers, and then how do we make it so that the publishers actually agree to this? Because if they don't agree, then you're not doing anything. And then once we had this sort of in mind, we got a lawyer to write a contract for us, and we went to the publishers. And so we started going to the smaller publishers and telling them, look, this is our idea, this is what we wanted to do. Would you help us? Would you do it? And that was probably the hardest part, because it took us over a year to get the first contract signed. Like, over a year since we started talking to them to the moment they actually signed the contract. But then to date, we have some pretty big publishers like Pearson or Springer, or we have UTET, even Krut, publisher of Polytechnic. Yeah, so we have quite a few publishers, and that was the starting point. And then the other thing is, how do you get funding? Because after a while you realize we're not going to be able to do this without any money. It's going to take some money to advertise it, it's going to take some money to develop it, to maintain it and everything. And so for that we started going to startup competitions. We got into the incubator, Polytechnic.
Yeah.
And they also give you a bit of guidance there. And then eventually we met this venture capital firm that was just starting out here in Turin. It's called Lift Turin, and they agreed to invest in our company, and that's how it started.
Now it's working.
Now it's going, yeah.
Nice.
It's public. We launched on the 30th of September, and starting on the 30th of September, we've been live. Now we're working on getting more books and going to more universities, because right now we're focusing on the Polytechnic of Turin.
Yeah, actually Facebook also starts like that from Oxford. From Harvard. I'm sorry.
Harvard, yeah.
I studied England. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'm telling you, you're like Mark Zuckerberg.
no,
Zuckerberg
never.
also dropped out of university and started his project on the Harvard itself.
But it's just because you have only seen, like, you only know about Mark Zuckerberg because he's the success case, you know?
Yeah,
But there are a lot of people who do this actually. Like, now that I'm in it, I meet so many more people who are doing the same thing. It's not that rare. There are hundreds of startups in Italy, and the sad truth is, the majority of them will fail. The vast, like 90% of them will fail.
And what is the reason of it? Yeah.
Well, there are some very hard things when you're making a startup, and so the very first problems, for example, are: do you actually find a product market fit? Like, is your product actually useful? Does it actually bring value to the people? And what you will always find is that no matter what your idea is, for the majority of ideas, when you actually make it public, it won't work. Like, people won't use it, and people won't pay money for it. People don't care. And then, in order to get it to work, what you need to do is you need to go talk to the people, ask them, so what do you think about it? What would you pay for it? No, you wouldn't. Why wouldn't you pay for it? And from that, you need to start understanding who your customers are and what they want. And you need to start changing your product and experimenting on your product, see what works and what doesn't. And this is, I think, one of the hardest parts about getting a start in the early stages of a startup. Like, a lot of startups fail here. They never manage to find a variation of their product that actually works and that people are actually willing to pay money for. And then other things are, for example, failure to get funding, although that's usually correlated to some other factor. Like, if you're not promising and you don't seem like a profitable business, then you won't be able to get funding for your next stages. Other problems further in the stages of a startup are like failure to scale. So maybe you found a product that people are willing to pay for, and that on a scale of hundreds or thousands of sales is profitable, but are you able to bring it up to millions of sales while still remaining profitable? And are you able to do that in a short amount of time before you run out of money? So these are kind of the challenges, some of the challenges of making a startup. But there's a lot of them. Actually, I think I read somewhere that the number one reason startups fail is failure for the founding team to stick together and to keep working together.
Yeah.
Like, I think almost 50% of failures in the early stages are just because the founders at some point, they just don't go so well along, and so they just leave. So yeah, that's also a thing.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to ask about. Like, how did you find your team? And also, is there any one person who wants to be a leader, or like you all work together?
So right now, the founders is my co-founder and I, and we found a really nice balance where we really each have our own responsibilities. So my responsibility is managing the pipeline, the work pipeline. So with the entirety of our team, getting the work done every week, making sure that everything gets to the public, everything manages to get done. And then my partner has the administration of the company. So, like, do we have enough money? Are we gonna be able to survive for the next 10 months? And also the business part, where like we need more books, we need to go talk to more publishers, we need new contracts and so on. And so I think that is really important, because it means that I'm never going to tell my partner, like, you're not doing your job right, because that's not my responsibility. I just trust that he's doing it right, and so does he towards me, and that allows us to avoid arguing. That's right, because the truth is, the majority of arguments are about tiny things that really don't matter.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we've seen. Like we would often argue about the details, the tiny details, but what really matters is like we're always we always think the same way about what really matters. It's only the details that, you know, I prefer it like this and you prefer it like that, and so we're gonna argue to have it the way each one prefers.
Something happens with John as well, and we say we need to find someone to
Right, to say who decides.
third person, I mean,
Uh-huh.
the judge. Because half, then it's equal. We need
Right.
to find the other one to be 2 to 1.
Yeah, exactly. That's also very useful, and so also like that's where the investor comes in. You know, we also have an investor, and they're also part of our equity, so they also do get a word in our decisions. So in the end, if we really can't agree on something, then our investor will also help us decide. But no, for the most part, that doesn't really happen. We usually, again, as I said, we have our responsibility very well differentiated, and we don't argue very often. In regards to the team, we were actually very lucky because none of us actually had experience hiring and going through a selection process, but we were really lucky because somehow we managed to find other people who are like us, really motivated and really and sharing our goals. And especially the number one thing I would say is very hungry to learn. And that's, I think, what really matters. The other day we were discussing our vision as a team, and we were trying to figure what were the qualities that we cared the most about in the people who we're going to hire in the future. And incredibly, growth was the number one voted quality. Yeah, growth is in like personal and professional continuous growth. So there was that, and in some cases we were very lucky because the person just came to us, like with our designer. She just wrote us like, I saw what you're doing, I'd like to work, and she's great. In our cases, we were looking really hard for a certain role, and then once we found it, we found out that, you know, again, we're really lucky.
Yeah. Actually, to find, how would I say, your future teammate, probably you need to look for certain characteristics, and especially, I mean, understanding each other, as you say, motivation.
Yes, understanding each other, but also like how to say, the will to actually find the best possible result and not to win an argument, because or not to actually be right. It doesn't matter to be right. It matters that the final decision is right.
Okay.
And so also like this is very important in the people, that they be able to abstract and not get to not stick too much to what their initial position was. You know, once they realize that, oh yeah, actually that's better, the way the other guy is saying it is better, then just be able to say, okay, you're right, that's the right way to go. That's very important, I think.
Yeah, and also I think giving a responsibility is very important, because there are like some arguments might show up if there's like some member of the team doesn't feel really responsible, like others try to like argue with the person maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also because it's a very small company, you know, just 7 people, everyone carries a lot of responsibility. Everyone is very important to the outcome of the project, and so it's important they understand it, and they understand how valuable they are. You know, it carries quite some responsibility.
Yeah, the project is really useful for all the students. Yeah, I mean, it's cheap, and also, I mean, just all the books in one platform, right? As I remember.
Yep. Yeah, I think the comfort of it is one of the biggest things that people tell us they like. Like, it's just, you know, wherever you want, whenever you want. You take out your phone, you have all your textbooks. You take out your computer, you have all your textbooks. You don't need to carry them with you. You don't need to worry about buying the new textbooks. Because when the professor is telling you, you need to buy this textbook. Well, no, actually, I already have it. And so that's kind of the idea. Also, the other thing is, we're in 2020, and we're still studying like we have been for the past, 2,000, 3,000 years. Still on the paper.
Yeah, I'm like that actually. I read from the paper, yeah. That's why I wasn't interested in when you send this project to group and okay, it's kind of project now I'm interested in, I want to use it. Yeah.
You're the kind of people who prefer studying on paper.
Yeah.
Because you're used to it.
I was used to it.
Like you grew up studying on paper. But it's easy for me to imagine for me to imagine people like who are born in 2005, 2010, 2015.
I was thinking like
they will not be used
after probably 5 or 10 years. Your company age will come.
Everyone will be studying on digital.
Because I had a notebook when I came to Italy.
And you still have it.
My first notebook. Until that time, I used papers to study, and I'm used to it.
Right.
Even me too. I'm not really get on well with paper, like with digital.
Yeah.
So because I need to feel the paper and also the book. I don't know why maybe.
Probably. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's probably because you're used to it again. Yeah. Because you grew up doing it that way.
Yeah, I think it's because where we came from. Probably we are a developing country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also if I read from the book, I might kind of remember on which page of the book the theme was. But if I read from the phone, I cannot remember it.
That's right. But then the other thing is, it also depends on how you make it. So right now we're not very clever about how we make studying material on mobile devices or on digital.
But the topic became really interesting. We are really sorry. Actually, we are not asking the questions.
I'm glad it's interesting.
We actually didn't start our conversation yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because now the topic is really interesting and useful for us as well. I don't know, maybe because you are founder of one company. Even small, but anyway, you have great experience.
We're learning a lot, that's for sure. Like I don't think I've ever learned so much in so little time.
Yeah.
Like every day it's like learning new things.
I don't think that you would have learned so much like that if you didn't drop out.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I dropped out, because I looked at it and I was like, when I realized I had this opportunity, it just seemed like the way to learn the most in the least amount of time. Also, working, when I used to work, like before this project, when I used to study at university and also work part-time, that was also great. That was like a lot of learning. Like if you get the chance to work while studying, you should totally do it. Even if you feel like you don't know your job yet. Like as a software programmer or a software engineer, you might feel like, well, but I don't know the job yet. And the truth is, university won't teach you the job. You will still go to the company once you're done with university, and you will learn the job there. University will only give you a lot of information around it, which is really good for you long term, and it also give you the chance to network with people like that all around you. And like that's, I think, what the really valuable thing about university is. All the great minds that are just always interacting with one another, always coming up with new ideas. You're always stimulated. You're always pushed to learn something.
Like meeting point.
What? Like a meeting point. Yeah, sure. I guess that's kind of what I really appreciated about university. For the job, I think every company doesn't expect you to know the job when you go there. At least if they're looking for junior people, they don't expect you to know the job. whether you have gone to university or not. Like a company can be looking for junior people without experience, or senior people who have a lot of experience already. If they're looking for someone junior, it doesn't really matter if they've gone to university or not. They're still junior, they have no experience, and the company just expects them to not really know what the job is and to mostly learn it there. Of course, if you have it's going to be very useful for you to have the basics of programming and of computer science, but it's like, for example, if you do computer science in high school, like it's almost enough for getting into a company.
Wow.
University is going to be really useful if you want to go into some deeper subjects. Like if you want to do research, for example, artificial intelligence or robotics or things like that. Or if you just want to develop a career in those very, very specialized things that really require a lot of thinking about it, studying it and practicing it. But for most part, like if you're just working in a software house that makes websites and apps and so on and so forth, it's I wouldn't say that university is really required.
Okay, now I have a question. I mean, when did you start programming?
Mm-hmm.
And
Don't worry, take it.
no, I think I should. Okay, when did you start programming? And after starting, how many years did it take to join the company? I mean, you said that after graduation of school, you just got a job from the company.
So I started programming when I was 8 years old.
8 years old.
Yeah, but I was like very lucky. I just got a book from a friend of my parents that was about the internet and how it works.
Wow.
And then the most of the book was interesting, but it wasn't like anything technical. It just went about like how the internet works. But then by the end there was a tiny chapter about how web pages are made, and so I talked about HTML, and it showed some code, some examples of code. And when I saw that, and I realized that like, oh, what? So I can make one of those literally just by, I can go to my computer and make it. Really, it's that simple. That just like destroyed me. Like from there, I think I started asking my parents to buy me programming books, and it just started like that.
You had natural interest actually.
I was always very curious about how things works. Yeah.
And you should be thankful to your parents that they gave you that book. Small.
Yeah,
book
that was
that's about internet and a bit about websites.
Yeah, that was very, very lucky.
I think when I was 8, I used to play with sand.
Play with?
With sand.
Same. With clays, yeah.
Well, yeah, but me too. I mean, I would code a little and play a bit. And then when I was, I think 14 years old, I did a freelance project for a Scottish startup. So there was this Scottish startup that was making a food delivery service, like a few years ahead of Just Eat and Glovo and all the services that were using it. And I remember there's this website called freelancer.com.
Yeah.
I was just looking for ways of making a little bit of money online. And I was like, freelancing is a thing and I can code, so I could try that. And the only thing is I was 14 and it said you needed to be at least 18, obviously. So I just picked being 18.
No.
And so I got...
pretended to be 18.
Exactly. I had this Scottish startup that gave me this job, so I had to make their website. And the ordering system. So like people would order from their website, and it's actually very simple. It's nothing as complex as like Just Eat's website is. That's obviously a lot more complicated. But still, it was my first job, and I remember like it paid me a bit over €1,000 there. And when you're 14 years old, like 1,000 euros is like a lot of money.
Yeah, it's like you
Yeah.
have tons of money in your pocket.
Yeah.
And there was
Great motivation.
yes,
Yeah.
that was a great motivation.
So that was your like, literally first project.
That was my first job. Yes.
Like before that time, you never knew how projects and how making
Right.
software
Before
applications
that,
work.
I was only coding for my own pleasure. So like, I made I had a website at the time. I made a website for myself, and then I had a little forum where we used to dub anime. Sorry, to sub anime. You know, we would take like
Okay.
right in Italian. So we would have anime that was already subbed in English, and we just translate that into Italian, and publish it on our website.
Oh yeah.
Which is probably a very legal thing, because you don't have the rights to the anime or anything. But so we used to do that, and that also taught me a bit. And then Minecraft. I remember when Minecraft first came out, I was like hooked. You guys know Minecraft.
Yeah.
I was totally hooked. And then after playing it for a while, I realized that you could extend the functionality of the game by making mods. And you do that by writing some code. And so I started writing a few Minecraft mods, and that's really cool because it was probably the first time that I got to see someone else's code. Because as you're doing that, you see the original code for Minecraft, and you're just writing along that, and so you see how there's a lot of things that you've never even seen before, and a lot of techniques, a lot of structure, a lot of logic, and also the way that the project is organized, which is something that was completely missing. So that taught me a lot. And then the Turin ecosystem really helped after that, because when I was 15, I went to with my high school. I studied computer science in high school, and I went with my high school to an event here in Turin. That's called the DroidCon.
Yeah, I know it. I think
You know
I know it. Yeah.
It's a conference about the Android ecosystem, and it's made for Android developers.
I think they send also some kind of information from Palito email.
Oh, could be there probably.
Yeah.
They probably do. And it's organized by Synesthesia, the company that I've worked for last year. So I went there when I was 15, and after the conference, what they do is they organize a hackathon. You know what a hackathon is? Like 2 days, and you have these 48 hours to do a project. And then by the end of the 48 hours, you show everyone your project, and there will be a winner voted essentially. And one of the sponsors in that hackathon was a company from Florence called Volumio. This company makes essentially software for smart music players. And they're one of the sponsors of the hackathon. And their theme was like, make some plugin for from our application. So I did make a plugin. I made a plugin that allowed you to stream music from YouTube on their music player. And so they thought that my application was cool at the hackathon, and I ended up working for them as a freelancer for the next year and a half. So that, like, while I was in high school, that was what I was doing for the remaining part of the day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
No, I'm really motivated from the experience. Yeah.
so that was actually just your idea that you came up with in just 2 days in hackathon.
Yeah, that was exactly. Well, it wasn't
making a plugin.
making a plugin that will allow you. So the Volumi is like this tiny device that you can take and you can put next to your speaker. You connect your speaker to it, and then it controls your speaker essentially. And the cool thing about it is, because it's pretty much a computer, so you can really have it do anything. You can have it play music from Spotify. You can have it play music from your hard drive, your network hard drive, and so on. And so I made a plugin that would also allow you to play music on it from YouTube, which is something that they didn't have at the time. And in 48 hours I did have a prototype, but then I actually kept working on it for the following weeks, and I released it afterwards. And then I kept working for Volumia for a while, which was really cool because it gave me because when you're working for yourself, you're always you're still learning, but you're not trying new things, you know, because you have your ideas, you're doing your ideas, but they're always, you're still doing the same things that you already know over and over again. But when someone else gives you something to do, it's challenging, you know, you have to do things that you haven't thought about before. And so that also taught me a lot. And the fact that the Turin ecosystem is so rich meant that the year after, Lumia was again a sponsor at the hackathon, the same hackathon from the year before. But this time, they asked me to coach at the hackathon for their platform. And so while doing that, I met the guys from synesthesia, who were like, well, why don't you come in synesthesia one of these days so we can have a chat? And like that, I then started working in synesthesia, and that was like, it's crazy how there's this like one thing, and then everything develops from that one thing. So it's like, always take the opportunities that you get. Go to conferences, go to these things. They're useful.
Now, what kind of thing I'm concluding that you look older than 20 years old. I think it's because of your life experience.
What?
I mean, I thought you are older than me, even 20. You look like 24, 25. I mean,
Really?
I mean, 23, not 20 years old, because.
Yeah, actually, I actually started I studied computer science, and I have never done any coding before. So I started coding for the first time in 18, and you started at 8, so you kind of started your life like 10 years before me. So that's why you maybe look also
older.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's also because I didn't shave.
No. I mean, how would I say? You look young, but not 20 years old. I mean, like experienced person, you know. The way you talk, the way you act, and.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
and also, I was going to add, the hackathon is held offline. I thought it is totally online.
Well, it depends. There are a lot of hackathons actually, but the DroidCon hackathon is offline.
DroidCon hackathon.
Yeah, it's part of the conference. Like, it's right after the conference, but it's organized by the same guys. And it's offline, which in my opinion is really fun, because you actually get to talk with all the people you're working with, and that's also another source of motivation. But also there's also hackathons online. One of my favorites was the LD Jam. LD Jam is like a game programming jam, where you like have 48 or 72 hours to make a video game. And I did that a couple of times. It was really fun. Well, obviously, you need to enjoy, staying up all night and being really, really
we have also
drowsy.
A good experience in game creating.
Game development. Not experience. I never worked, never actually worked in that field. But it's a bit of a hobby, because I have fun doing it. So sometimes I do.
Yeah.
It's been a while now. I haven't done it for a while.
Yeah. So, and then there will also be investors in the hackathon. And what do investors look for? Do they want to invest in the person who wins in the hackathon?
I think, I'm not sure what kind of investors you might find in the hackathon. For sure you'll find people who are looking for talent. If I had to think, I need to find a talented person, then the hackathon is where I would go. And so there's a lot of opportunities in a hackathon, because there's people looking for talented people. So if you show that you have talent, that you are really motivated, at least that you are good at what you do, then most likely you will find some opportunity there.
Okay. So because you are saying you had a project, I can say a project to make a plugin, and you ended up working for some company for the next year and a half. So that company found you motivated and talented. So
yes,
so that company was in the hackathon especially to look for talented people.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Although I'm sure that it was one of their the reasons for being there. I'm not sure it was the only. It was probably also for looking for, trying to set up a community, trying to find people, trying to show off to people, advertising, if you will. That was probably one of the reasons they were doing it. But I think also being young in these things gives you a great advantage, because it means you probably don't have a lot of expectations. So you can be like, you're not gonna ask for a huge salary, or you're not gonna ask for a lot of things, and you're gonna be pretty happy doing whatever they want you to do. You just, you really want to learn, and everything is new to you. So that's also another one of the reasons. But that's precisely the reason why, if you're young, you want to go to hackathons, because you're appealing.
Yeah. Actually, now you told really important thing about job. Actually, I also listened. I mean, great businessmen. Great businessmen. Business people say that when it comes to get a job, just work for experience, not for money, for the first time.
Oh yeah, totally. That's also true when you try to pick the company you go to work for. Like, choose the company that will teach you the most, not necessarily the one that will pay you the most for the first jobs. I think for me, it was really, the thing that was really important was trying to get not a huge corporate company, because chances are your job is going to be very specialized and very repetitive. Like if you go to work in a big company, 500, 1,000 employees, you have a very small, well-defined job. There is no space to move. That's what you do. And so I was really lucky, both in Volumio and Synesthesia were both relatively small companies. Like Volumio is like a team of 10, and Synesthesia is like a team of well, now there are like 70 or so, maybe more. But when I joined them, it was like 50 people, and that was like among marketing and business and tech and developers. And so I really did have the chance to do a lot of different things. I worked on developing mobile apps, developing websites, developing backends. I even did a project on artificial intelligence, and I did a project on electronics. So that's what really gives you a chance to learn a lot of things, in my opinion, a smaller company.
You mean the person who works for a small company may have a chance to work on different fields, like
that's
you
right.
said.
Exactly. Of course, that's what you do. Because when you look at, when you think about your career, you need to realize that the moment your salary will start to increase, a lot, is the moment when you specialize. So your salary is gonna be like this, and then once you decide that this is what you're gonna do for your whole life, it's kind of like, whoa, because you become one of the, you decide, my specialty is making, my specialty is React front ends. I'm really good at that. You do that, after you do that for 5 years, 10 years, you become one of the best people in the world at that. And that's when you really can go to a company and say, look, I can do this in 2 weeks. There is nothing that could go wrong. I've done this 1,000 times in the past. And it's going to be the best you can get. And you can ask for a lot of money.
Have you been able to find your specialty?
No, not yet. Because what I was gonna say is, when you pick a small company, you're not specializing yet. You're going generalist. You just wanna see everything that there is, and then at some point you might decide to specialize so as to become really good at what you do. But what I have done is I haven't decided what to do. In fact, after working in Synesthesia, which was already a pretty generalist job, I decided to make a startup which is an even more generalist job, because in a startup you just do everything and you find yourself reading contracts and negotiating and doing business and economics and writing business models and financial plans, although initially you are a programmer. So
Yeah.
so it's way less specialized in a way than before.
Yeah, but really interesting.
It is, I love it.
Company, yeah.
I love it because you get the chance to see so many things. I mean, I'm not sure, it's early to tell what.
Now I want to give you a really good question. I mean, for example, you worked as a developer,
Mhm.
programmer, and now you are, how would I say, you are CEO, I mean founder of the company, and you are controlling the company with your friend.
Mhm.
Which one is difficult and stressful?
Well, for sure, running a company is more stressful than being a developer. But I think that's just because when you're an employee, once you go home from work, that's the end of your day job. You know, that's the end of the day. You don't think about your job anymore. You're just, you know, your salary is gonna come at the end of the month. You're happy because you're learning, and now you're just, you know, free to go out with friends, free to go wherever you want, to do whatever you want. But when you're running a company, it's like how the company goes is it's all your responsibility. So if the company is not going so well, or maybe there's a moment when you're kind of worried, the day never ends really. Like you go home, you still think about work. You're still working. You wake up, like you think about work. Like what's going on? Is everything alright? So that's definitely more stressful. But then the other thing is, I have fun doing it. Like it's what I enjoy doing, and that's really important. And because of that, it's not bad at all. It's really good actually. I like it.
It's like company is your child and growing child.
Yeah, it's something like that. And it's also like the company is your hobby.
Yeah.
And so like you wake up in the morning and you think about
When the company
hobby.
grows, you become happy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's already happy, like in the sense that, well, obviously the growth is the goal, but it's already enjoyable for me. It's my passion. So I think that's really important. You need to find, if you can, you need to find something that you really love to do, and try to do that for the rest of your life, because it's also like, it's also the only way in which you're going to be able to do the same thing over and over every day for your whole life. Yeah, like you really need to love it. Otherwise, you're gonna get sick of it,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I think because I follow you from Instagram, and
Mhm.
I see you. I mean, from your pictures, you are in different locations. I mean, in mountains, and I think your hobby is traveling, right?
Right. Well, more than traveling, I love to travel. But even more so, I think probably one of my greatest hobbies is like the mountains, hiking. I just love the peace. I love it because my work week is then actually quite hectic. It's just like, and so I get to the weekend and I'm like really tired and thinking about so many things. And if I just take that Sunday to go to the mountains, it's like complete silence. There's no one, and you look around and it's just these magnificent views. I think it's one of the most beautiful feelings I know of.
Yeah,
No,
it's
I
great.
felt
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Yeah. What?
No, I imagine it felt a bit.
Well, have you went to the mountains here in Italy?
Yeah, actually, with John, for the last time we went to Bardanek.
Bardanek is pretty cool.
But
Was it during the
didn't
winter?
hike too much, but a bit.
Okay. You should go. You should try the hike. It's really cool. Like once you reach a peak or a high point, and you look around, there's like no one. I think that's a very cool feeling.
Actually, we were looking for someone who can hike with us.
Well, we can totally do that. I'd be glad to do that once.
That would be nice.
So, why do you prefer to be like alone to hike alone? Because you want to.
No, usually I hike with some friends. Like usually the same people every time. but I've never hiked alone actually. Maybe once. Yeah, I definitely prefer hiking with company.
If you want to make new networks or friends, oh, let's go to hiking and
Oh yeah, for sure.
you become really good friends on the way of hiking, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because you
probably.
can spend a whole day there. Yeah.
That's definitely a good way.
You
to
will
become
know
friends.
who the person is, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's really good way to know each other.
Mhm. Yeah. It's also a great way to like just forget about everything. Like whether it's been a good week or a bad week, whether you're in a good mood or a bad mood, you go to the mountains and it's always great. I don't know. That's at least for me. That's the way it is.
Yeah,
So I love that.
yeah, I'm really excited. Sure, I mean, I'm sure at least you will have one. There would be one person who impacted on from this interview.
I'm glad to hear that. I really hope so.
Yeah.
How that can be useful to someone.
Sure. Then you told, I mean, I want to ask you because you know this atmosphere of programming in Italy. I mean, junior programmers start their salary. With how much money they start their salary?
So it kind of depends on the company you work for and on your position, but it's between 1,000 and 2,000. That's for sure. I think the average is 1,400, 1,600, something like that. Yeah.
So that's technically as a junior programmer.
Yes.
Maybe with no previous experience.
With no previous experience, yes, and the jobs that are most available here in Turin are web app developer and mobile app developer for sure, and backend developer probably, but a bit less. Like in that order, web app, mobile app, and backend. I think those are the most looked for jobs.
Okay. And also, as you said before, like those people who want to specialize in artificial intelligence or robotics, maybe they better start in university. But
Yes.
what job would you think they could do while studying in the university before going so deep into artificial intelligence?
Well, again, I think doing one of these jobs that I just mentioned, so writing mobile apps or web apps, is not bad at all because it's gonna, at the end of the day, programming is just one thing. It's just problem solving. So it's just getting into that mindset of a problem and you figure out an algorithm to solve. So really, any programming will help you in being a better programmer. It doesn't matter if you're doing artificial intelligence, because when you're doing that, the artificial intelligence part is just one part, but still you write a lot of code around that, and so it's still gonna help you out. And plus to that is just, in my opinion, it's a pretty fun job, especially like if you're studying and you're not too much in a rush. If you have that enough free time, you should totally do it. In my opinion, like you have a lot to learn from doing that. Again, because it's gonna put you in situations where like you're outside your comfort zone. Yeah.
Okay, so as I understand, like even if you wanna work in different field of programming, you can still learn the web app or software development. Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. I don't know, but most programmers I know of, they'll like no matter what kind of thing you ask them, if they could potentially do, they can do it. Like no matter if you do this, if you do apps or if you do websites or if you do I don't know, like low-level electronics programming. Usually their knowledge is very overlapping. Like it's very generalist. They at least know how to do everything else. Because like programmers tend to spend a lot of time working on personal projects. Usually when you're a programmer, especially if you're passionate, you're gonna be working your day 8 hours, and then you're gonna be working 4 or 6 hours of your day on your own personal project because it's just so fun.
Yeah.
and so you get the chance to try a lot of things. So I think it's okay for you to take a job that's not exactly what you're aiming at.
Okay, I understand. And don't you think it might be kind of, I don't know, not very healthy for yourself to sit in front of the screen for the whole day?
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think right now I'm working like 16 hours a day.
16 hours a day.
Something like that. I'm in front of a screen for 16 hours a day.
16.
16, something like that. Maybe 15.
Maybe you can more than 24 hours a day.
Actually, I have read that Elon Musk said that work something like for 100 hours a week, and you will achieve something like your goal in 4 months rather than 1 year.
Yeah.
If we calculate 16 or 15 hours a week, a day, in the week, we will have something like, 5 working days. Yeah, it's like 100, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You should really be passionate about your job, because that's what happens when you are.
Okay.
When your job is also your passion, you don't mind spending all of your day from the morning to when you go to sleep.
Now, you are spending your time for your company, something like for 15 or 16 hours.
Yeah, the vast majority of it, yes.
Well, then there should be someone who needs to look at the screen, right?
Sorry?
What?
As
there should be someone always who needs to look at the screen.
Must be responsible of the technical part.
Yeah.
No, not really. I mean, the entire thing is mostly it's able to sustain itself.
Mm-hmm.
Was that your question? Like whether we need to maintain the software all the time?
Yeah.
Not really. We have things set up that will let us know if something is going wrong. So, for example, if some of our servers are down or our website is down or something like that, we'll get a message on our phones right away.
Okay.
And so we can make sure to go fix it right away. But that never really happens. The thing is just set up so that it's fairly withstanding to any sort of problem that there may be. But I work that much because, it's exciting. It's really exciting to see things happen, to see results being achieved, and you always want to achieve them faster. You're like, I don't want to wait so long before we get there.
Yeah.
And so it's really tempting. But for sure, that's not great for health, because like right now, I can totally feel that my eyes are really tired all the time, and I use my glasses very often. I have oh god, what is it called? Well, I don't remember, but essentially my sight is better from afar than from nearby, and so I have a pair of glasses that aids me in seeing when things are nearby. Now I can see everything pretty fine. Like I can focus even up to here.
So that's probably you don't want to read book. So
exactly right. But I never use them because again, I can see everything and I can do everything really fine. I've never used them until probably this year I started using them a lot.
Yeah.
Because working so much in front of the screen, I can feel it that by the end of the day, I find it quite hard to focus on the monitor.
Yeah.
So for sure there are.
Yeah, and also if you're over passionate about what you're doing, and as you said, you spend almost a whole day for your job, and don't you think it's going to affect your personal life, maybe your connection with your relatives or your close people?
Social life.
Yeah,
Your social
for
life
sure.
also, yeah.
It has terrible effects on your social life. I don't have a social life almost, but I have some friends that are always there, and with whom with whom I don't work, but who I'm really counting on. Who I try to keep very tight ties with, and talk to them all the time, and make sure to always be there, and who I can count on. I know I can count on. So I think it's really important to have someone that you can count on. But then again, we're in a pandemic, so what kind of social life is there? So I don't mind it too much. It's true actually that, for example, this summer I definitely had weeks in which I worked 8 hours a day, probably, for sure. And then there have been like almost 2 weeks in which I completely took off. So like I just took holiday. But for the most part, I don't mind, especially with the pandemic. We have to stay at home all day, every day anyway, so.
Yeah, I'm just speaking generally, and like we see so many people, so many programmers and also other professionals, also business people, like their job have turned into their life, so they totally dedicated their life for their job. And how do you look at it?
I think it really depends on what your personal goal is, like what it is that you want to achieve in life. And I can totally see for myself that in a few years it might no longer be like this. Like the way I look at it is, this is my moment. Like I'm 20 years old, this is the moment when I can really have an impact. Like, 'cause if I get 30, I'm not gonna start, I don't think at 30 I will be working 16 hours a day. Or, well, I don't know about that, we'll see about that. But now I can do it. At 30, I don't know, not so much maybe. So I will do it now and I'll try to have as much impact as I can right now. And then I will try to enjoy life and have a social life and maybe have a family and whatnot later on.
Like ants works in summer for their winter.
Something like that. But the difference is, well, I'm not sure, maybe ants are really passionate about their job and really enjoy it. But there's also that. I think it's really important to, it's really easy when you're working so much to just forget, just not think about it. You're just so focused that time flies and 1 year is gone and you're like, and you just haven't even stopped to think about it. I think it's really important to take some time. For example, I try to take the weekend off completely. I never can. I always end up working a little bit even during the weekend, but for the most part I don't work during the weekend. And one thing I try to do every weekend is just take a couple hours to just try to think and realize where I am. Like what's happened this week, what's happening next week. Is everything alright? Is everything according to plan? Am I forgetting about something? Is my social life becoming too stale? Should I take that a bit more to hand?
Yeah.
And I think
it's
that's
not a social life.
No, of course, right. That's
social life.
That's. I mean, that was very exciting for me about this.
Is it your first interview?
I think so, yeah, for sure.
For us as well.
I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the first time.
I hope it will be a lot.
Sorry?
I hope it will be a lot in the future.
Oh yeah, I'm sure about that. Wait, did you mean a lot of interviews in the future? Or
not
did you
with us, with others, I mean.
I don't know, I'm not sure about
When
that.
you
But I'm sure that
when your company grows, it should be.
maybe, could be.
Yeah,
Could
they
be.
are not going to. They are not going to let you rest even in the weekend.
Man, I hope that doesn't happen. Although, I mean, it's okay. I like work.
Okay. Next question
Okay.
is like, do you read books a lot?
Read books a lot.
Yeah, do you read books?
I do read, not nearly as much as I'd like to. I do read sometimes. Usually, I read when I have some problems. Like, there have been moments, like when we first started hiring people. I realized that I didn't know a lot about managing people, and so I read a few books on the topic, and they really helped a lot. Or when I realized that our web app was kind of starting to fall apart and the project was getting really messy and everything, I read a book about organizing that, or organizing front-end project organization. So usually it's kind of sporadic like that. When I need something, I get really into the topic and I read a couple books on it.
What about novels?
Sorry?
What about novels?
Not really. I don't love them. I've read novels when I was younger, when I was like small.
Because most of the people read books because they want to learn more about how the world works.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why. Is there such kind of book that changed your life?
Oh, okay. Books that have had a huge impact. Well, yeah, for sure. I remember I read this book called. They're mostly it's about psychology and about neurology. There was this one book called The Elephant in the Brain, which talks about how at the end of the day we're like animals, and like a lot of the things that we do, we think we do them for a reason, but actually it's much more chaotic and irrational than that. And I think that really that got me really surprised and a lot more careful about how I react to things and how I do things. Also, Thinking Fast and Slow was probably a very, very nice read. I can never remember the authors though.
Yeah.
Technically, your project is on making suggestion for people to read books.
Mhm.
So you also need to read more books.
Yeah.
Definitely. Also,
like
And you should start using your project.
right. Also, the project is for university students,
Yeah.
so maybe I should have dropped out.
Yeah. So you should read online. That's good for you.
That's a paradox.
Yeah, I was going to think and ask, like, you read a book about hiring people,
Mhm.
when you first look for people to increase your
Mhm.
did you start hiring people when you feel necessity for like additional people, or you met someone on the street or in some conference and just offered them to join you, even if they are not so necessary?
No, we hired when we needed the people, and usually we actually hired kind of late. So like we would need this person, and then we would wait a bunch until it became really, really important. And when we realized we really couldn't like do without, then we would hire them. When you're a startup, you need to be pretty careful about how you're spending money, and people are really expensive. Like people are one of the biggest expense of a startup, obviously. I think if we were a more established company, then we would probably, the thing you were talking about would happen a lot more often. The hiring people just, that you just met, just because they're smart and they look like they could help, and not really because you have a necessity for them. I think that happens a bunch in bigger companies and companies that are more established than we are.
And how about in the initial stage when you are not so established and so like not official a company, and so you are just starting up with your friend,
Mhm.
and if you meet some other
Okay.
person who is interested, would you ask them to join you, or like even there is no role or there's not necessary role for them?
Absolutely. I think it really depends on like the person. Like, is that an entrepreneurial person? Because at that point, if you're gonna ask someone to join, then they're gonna join as a founder,
Yeah.
most likely. And you wanna make sure that they are going to give it. They are as passionate about it as you, and that once you actually get the company going, they're going to be dedicated as much effort as you are. You don't wanna found your company with someone who will actually be disinterested or sporadic about it afterwards, because that's gonna reflect, and everyone is gonna see that. Your investors are gonna see that, and your team is gonna see that you have someone who is not really dedicated in your management team. But for sure, absolutely.
Okay.
You should like, if you find a person that's really valuable, you should definitely get them on board, because you're gonna get a smaller slice of the pie, but the pie is probably gonna get much bigger.
Yeah.
So you should always invest in time.
Yeah, good.
Now I concluded that, actually learning how to works, there are two ways. One is through books, one
Mhm.
is through life.
Mhm.
Now I see
Oh, yeah.
that someone who learned the life through living. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think so because you said that you haven't read a lot of books, and which means you have really good life experience. And you learn it through living.
I love to try things out. Yes, I try a lot everything. And I think that's I would if anyone asks me if I can give one advice, that would be just do it. You know, whatever it is. Like if you have an idea or you think you want to make this thing, but you have no idea where to start. It's like it doesn't matter where you start from. Just start doing something. Just start moving towards it, and then things happen as you go, and one thing brings the other, and then you will learn things as you go, and eventually you're gonna get somewhere. Yeah, and I do agree with what you're saying that there's two ways to go about things. One is to study about it first, read about it, and make research, and the other one is just get started, and then you will fail probably a bunch of times, but eventually you will learn. And I guess the second one is more my way.
I'm actually curious how much time you spent in the initial stage of your project, like when you just started.
When we just started, I dedicated to it most of my free time. Yeah, so I would go to university for half of my work week, 20 hours, and then I would work for the company for another 20 hours in the week, and then I don't know, it's probably another 30-40 hours that I would dedicate to the project for in the beginning. And so yeah, I've actually been I've been having this pretty tight schedule on and off for a couple of years now, where I work a lot of hours during the week. Again, it's on and off. So for example, during the summer there are usually months during which I'm much more relaxed and I'm working much less, and then just kind of enjoying the nice season, going out with friends a little bit. But then there are moments when it's very, rhythm. There was something I wanted to say, but I guess it wasn't important.
Yeah, I was just asking because when you just started, you don't make any profit out of it, so there must be a passion for you to keep it going.
Yes, you should have a passion, and that's why you should
be so interested.
Yeah, your project should be something that you really believe in. You should have a personal motivation for doing that project. You shouldn't be just I want to make money, or it's not gonna work out. You need to believe it through all the time.
Yeah. I agree with you, but I don't have too much experience. But I'm trying to gain experience as much as possible.
Through trying.
Huh?
Through trying.
Through trying, yeah. Probably I read enough books.
So the first one you don't really work out and you are training.
Yeah, I read 2 books of Trump.
You read 2 books?
Of Trump.
Of Trump?
Yeah. No, I need to start the work.
Yeah.
I have question. Do you have other questions?
I think I didn't start my question.
Yes.
Yeah, you can just go ahead.
No, I mean just my question is something like finishing question.
Okay. Okay, one thing I want to ask. When I search on the internet, to be an AI programmer or to specialize in robotics and all this stuff, the math is or physics are very important, or those subjects you study in university are very important. But I cannot really connect programming and the subjects of university. How are they so connected? I don't understand this part.
You're talking about the subjects that you are studying right now at Polytechnic, for example?
Yeah. For
you're
example. And also especially the math or physics.
Okay, I get it. Well, the thing is, you're not really studying programming. You're studying engineering.
Yeah.
and it just so happens to be software-oriented engineering. Like at the end of your path, you will be an engineer. An engineer means you can sign on a project for building, or you can sign on a project for dam. You know, that's an engineer.
Okay.
And it just so happens that you also know programming. Which means you really need to study all of those things that it takes to be an engineer. So I think that's why so much maths and so much physics. An alternative for computer science could have been, for example, studying computer science at UNITO, where it's not an engineering career. You want to be an engineer by the end of it, and you will have studied a lot more programming probably by the end of the path.
But it's in Italy.
Yeah, it's in Turin.
Yeah,
in Italian.
it's in Italy.
Oh, it's in Italian. Oh, right, it's in Italian. They don't have it in English.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
But then the other thing is for programming, you really need to study it yourself. It's really important because like every programmer has their mind model. You know, like what you really need to make is to build your mind model, to build the way that you get to resolving problems. And you only do that by doing it.
Yeah.
So what really matters is that you program every day for at least a few hours every day. And you're gonna see the progress really fast if you do that. I don't think anyone can really teach you programming. Like they can teach you the basics, the things that you need to get started, but then to actually become a good programmer, you really need to just do it alone, do it yourself, and figure your own way out through programs. In a way, it's kind of like when you're a child and you need to start to learn to walk or to do the normal things of everyday life. It's not like your parents like show you or make you do them. You have to discover them yourself. It's really important. And I think it's kind of the same thing with programming. Like people can teach you a bunch of things, but you really need to go around and do it, and that's how you're really gonna learn it. In my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, yeah, but there are like many different paths in programming. So I think for software developer, web developer, those subjects are not really so important. But I'm just asking about like artificial, like people who specialize deeply in artificial intelligence or those.
Well, in artificial intelligence, you're really gonna need analysis, for example.
And that's the question, why?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know a lot about artificial intelligence, but like I know the basics of how a neural network works, and there's a bunch of things like so you're gonna have neurons, right? You're gonna have a lot of neurons in a neural network, and then you're gonna have them connected with one another, and you're gonna have some signals passing through them. Now, a signal is nothing other than a number which goes in, and then another number that goes out, for example. And the connections between neurons are called synapses, and those have weights. And so every signal that passes through a synapse is multiplied by the weight before arriving to the other end of the synapse. And the way you change the output of a neural network is by changing all of these weights, all of the synapses.
Okay.
So the way that the neural network learns is actually nothing more than some mathematical function. And there are a bunch of different types. For example, one of the ways you can have one of the methods to make a neural network learn is called gradient descent. And the way it works is you have all of the parameters of your neural network that will change its behavior. You imagine them as dimensions, spatial dimensions. And so you imagine you have a space with n dimensions. And then you imagine that this space, like the final dimension in this space is the performance of the neural network. And so you imagine this space, which is like, if you imagine it in just 3 dimensions, you can think of it as like a large terrain with valleys and hills and mountains. And then you can imagine like the lowest points in the map as being the highest performance points. And then so your gradient descent is kind of like rolling a ball down through the hills and finding the absolute lowest point in the hill. And so the problem becomes, how do you find the lowest point in the hill, which is the point of best performance for the neural network? And in order to be able to visualize these things and understand them, it's very useful to know, for example, derivatives and integrals and all these math stuff, analysis stuff. Which I'm not really good at actually, because, well, I dropped out. But even the analysis one was very useful for me, actually. And so I think I haven't done a lot of artificial intelligence at all. Like
good
only
question.
the basics.
Good question I have now. How many subjects did you pass in the first year?
I only passed, I think 3 or 2. I know for sure I passed linear algebra in the computer science. I don't think I passed analysis actually, now that I think about it. I didn't pass analysis, so I took
Computer science?
and linear algebra.
Linear algebra, okay.
Yeah. And then you are studying kind of implementation of analysis, for example. And why don't professors actually teach the implementation of the subject, maybe so that students will study with more interest and passion?
I don't know about that. I have no idea about that, but I don't know.
Or maybe students cannot really grasp if the professors teach the implementation, and maybe it might just end up, they might just end up students being confused if they go into the implementation.
I really don't know. I used to have a teacher in high school that would, when explaining to us derivatives, they would actually make real world examples, like with comparisons with physics. So, like, you have position, speed, and acceleration, just like one derivative of the other. And I think that was actually quite cool to see that. Like when you actually see a graph of how the position changes over time, and then look at velocity and how the velocity graph is actually correlated with the position graph, and how the acceleration graph is actually talking about the velocity graph. And so I do agree with you that it will be probably very useful to try and give an implementation. But I have no clue why they don't do it. I do agree with you that analysis was pretty boring at Polito. It was pretty hard to keep up.
If you just study theory without knowing its implementation.
Yeah. There is a great channel on YouTube called Free Blue One Brown.
Yeah, I know it.
You know it? I love that.
Yeah, they show with all the graphs and everything.
Yep. It's quite cool. And if you get the chance to if you like coding and you get the chance to have some free time, just write some code, you can actually have a lot of fun by trying to write visualizations for various math problems. It's really fun.
And how are you going to write it? With which programming language?
There is one programming language which I think is called actually processing, which is based on Java, if I'm not wrong, and it just makes it really easy to display stuff on the screen. So it has some easy functions that you can use to just draw a circle or draw a square, and so I think that's a great starting point. But also Python is probably good with Pygame, or JavaScript in the browser. I guess it really depends on what you like.
Cris, your full name is Cris Pintea, right?
Yes. Well, Christian actually.
Christian?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Not Cristiano Ronaldo.
No, definitely not.
Okay. Christian, what's your purpose of life and what makes you happy, mostly?
That's a very deep question.
Philosophical question.
I'm not really sure about the purpose yet. I've changed my mind a few times in the past. The one thing that I always agree on is that I want to contribute to humanity in some way. What has changed is really what that way is. So in the past, my idea was I want to create value, I want to create value for a lot of people. And now it's more like I don't care to be a lot of people. Maybe it can even be a tiny bit of people, but I want to have had a positive impact on it. Might change again in the future, but I can see that there's always this pattern where our life is very finite, and on the scale of the universe, it's very insignificant. It's like a poof. But if you can leave an impact, it kind of means you can live forever, right? In what you have left to other people.
Yeah.
What was the other part?
What makes you happy the most? Mostly. What makes you happy mostly?
It's probably passions. Like, for me, it's... Well, if I think about it, it's more like curiosity, finding things out, discovering things. And if I think about it, all of my passions are very much driven by this desire to learn. Because like, when you're making a company, you're learning a lot. You're finding out a lot of things. When you're programming, you're constantly learning. Like, you never finish up learning when you're programming. Like, computer is such a huge, complex machine that you're always gonna have more stuff to learn.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what drives it for me. Curiosity, finding out. Also, the mountains are out of curiosity, because it's like discovering the planet, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're just walking the surface of this rocky planet in space. So you're just going up and down and just figuring out like why there is a peak here and why there is a hole over here. It's really quite, I think, about curiosity.
Following your passion, curiosity makes you happy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, and I think actually there must be some hobbies, this kind of like programmers, like just to get distracted from programming for a while, because it's really going to make you crazy.
Today what I discovered. I discovered Cris Pintea. I discovered you a lot. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah.
Maybe next time I can take your interviews on my channel.
Wow. Yeah, sure.